Hey guys, it's Arena. Welcome back to Fantastic Korean Dishes, where we cook up simple but delicious Korean meals. Today, we're going to be making Budae Jjigae. That literally translates to army-based stew. So this stew came about during the Korean War when food was very scarce in South Korea. So a lot of people who lived near the US Army bases would take a lot of the surplus food and make this jjigae. While even though it's been decades since the war has ended, people still love this stew. And in fact, when you come here, you can easily find restaurants that specialize just in Budae Jjigae. But today, I'm going to teach you how to make Budae Jjigae in the comfort of your own home. It's super easy, but it doesn't compromise the taste. All right, everyone, let's get cooking. So two of the ingredients that are really gonna bring out the flavor in this stew is number one, the vegetable umami, and number two, kimchi. So kimchi is going to not only just deepen the flavor of the stew, but it's also going to give it a bit of a kick. What I like to do is use a darker cutting board to cut kimchi because kimchi does tend to stain. If you have like a light cutting board like I do right here at the bottom, you might consider getting something darker if you do a lot of Korean cooking. The kimchi that I have, this is about 200 grams, and they are chopped, but I am going to chop it just a little bit more, just so it's easier to eat it. Okay, and then I'm going to put that back in. Now, you want some kimchi juice as well. Next, we're going to put in some sausages. Now, I'm going to be using Frank sausages, and we're going to be putting in 4. So, we're going to be slicing the sausages, and we're going to be slicing them on a diagonal angle so that we can get longer pieces, so that you can get lengthier pieces like this. Now, I know that there are a lot of different varieties of sausages. I think that it would be okay to use pretty much any variety, but personally I think just simple is best. Nothing with too much of a very strong flavor, but yeah, whatever sausage you have on hand. Next, we're going to be putting in half a piece of canned ham. We're going to cut it right down the middle and then slice it thinly. So you want to cut it similar thickness to the sausage. What you can do is actually fry it on a pan, fry the ham on a pan first, and then add it in. And it's just going to be, a little bit tasty. Anything that's fried tastes better, right? So that could be an extra thing you can do. Next, you're going to need a quarter of an onion, and we're going to just cut it thinly, like just julienne them. And onions bring about a delicious flavor to any soup or stew. Next, you're going to need about 50 grams of Asian leek. So I'm just going to cut this in half, chop them to about maybe a centimeter thickness. You don't want them to be too thin, otherwise when you're cooking the stew, they're all just going to wilt away. Next, you're going to need about 50 grams of oyster mushrooms. I like to cut the bottom part of the mushrooms, and then instead of using a knife for the oyster mushrooms, I'm just going to separate them using my hands. I personally love oyster mushrooms in Korean recipes, and but if you don't have oyster mushrooms at home, or you want to use up some of the mushrooms that you have in the fridge, it really doesn't matter. So this dish has a lot of processed meats in it, so it's not particularly the healthiest. That's why we need these vegetables, right? Okay, next we're going to put in some tofu. You're going to need a half. It's a very soft ingredient, so you don't want to cut it too thinly. Next, you're going to need about 30 grams of baked beans. This is the one and only dish that contains baked beans. It's definitely not a Korean style ingredient. Now, these are some optional ingredients that you can put in, but I personally feel like the more you put in, the better it's going to taste. So we have some mandu or Korean dumplings. I've got the mini size, so it's easier to eat. And you can find this at your Korean supermarket. We've got some tteok, also known as rice cakes. These are sliced like this. And we have some processed cheese or American cheese, and also some bacon. So here I have 3 slices of bacon, and I'm just gonna chop them up. I folded it in half, and then I'm gonna cut them in thirds. So the length should look something like this. And as you can see, if you compare it with the other ingredients, they're all pretty much the same in length, right? And that just makes it aesthetically look better, but also easier to eat. Next, we're gonna make the broth, and I find that sometimes people can feel a little bit overwhelmed by making broth because they're not really sure what to put in. So this is one of the simplest ways you can make the broth for Budae Jjigae, and that's just using some vegetable umami and water. So I'm gonna pour in about 500 milliliters of water. And we're gonna add in 2 tablespoons of vegetable umami. And this is gonna add that deep flavor that you would typically get from a vegetable broth. So depending on the amount of ingredients that you're putting in your Budae Jjigae, as well as the heat, the soup inside your Budae Jjigae could evaporate quite quickly. So instead of just pouring in some water, because that's just gonna make it very bland, you can just quickly make another batch of this broth, which is 500 milliliters of water and 2 tablespoons of vegetable umami, how much you need. So I'm going to be using a cast iron pot, but you don't have to, just any pot that is pretty wide, but also not too deep. So I'm going to start off with the sausages. I'm going to group them together, and the order doesn't matter too much. Right beside the sausages, I'm going to be putting the canned ham, and then the onions, and then the mushrooms, and then the tofu. Be very gentle with the tofu because they do mush quite easily. The chopped Asian leek, but if you don't have Asian leeks, you can put in just green onions. If you are using green onions, make sure you don't cut them too thinly, because otherwise after cooking it for a few minutes, it's gonna wilt too much, okay? Next, we're gonna put in the bacon right in the middle, and then I'm gonna put the baked beans right in the middle as well, right on top of the bacon. Okay, that's starting to look really good. Okay, I'm gonna put in all the optional ingredients that I talked about today. So we're gonna put in the tteok, or the rice cakes. Oh, another ingredient that you can put in is olmok, which is fish cakes, and you can get them at your local Korean supermarket. That's another ingredient that people like to put into Budae Jjigae. And then we're gonna put in the broth. And silly me, I forgot one of our star ingredients, which is the kimchi. I'm gonna put this right in the middle and put all of the kimchi juice as well inside. Now you have to have the kimchi in Budae Jjigae. Okay, I think I did a pretty good job setting this up. This looks amazing. Let's take it to the stovetop. So just set it on high heat, and once it starts boiling, bring it down to about medium-high heat. So usually when you go to Budae Jjigae restaurants, sometimes they'll use scrounged or bone broth. You know, it might be a little bit overwhelming to have bone broth to make this, so it's so much easier to just use vegetable umami. It definitely still adds that wonderful flavor to the soup, but it's so easy and it also feels lighter. Now we have a few minutes left, so now I'm gonna put in the ramyun noodles. So today we're just cooking everything together because it's just much simpler that way. But typically when you go to these Budae Jjigae restaurants, they'll bring it out without the noodles. And so once you've had a bit of the Budae Jjigae, usually somewhere in the middle you can order some of the noodles. So you just call the waiter and you say, can I have some noodles? And then usually they'll give you some options for noodles. So if you want ramyun, say, okay, I'll have some ramyun, and then the server will heat it up again and then put in the noodles. So, but we're gonna just put everything together in at the same time. So now the noodles are pretty much ready. I'm gonna take my American cheese. This is like the original OG way of eating Budae Jjigae, and I'm just gonna put it right on the top and just give it 30 seconds to a minute and the cheese will melt and it's gonna be so good. Okay, I'm just gonna try a noodle to see if it's ready. Everything else is cooked. Oop. Yeah, it's ready. Okay. Turn off the heat. Let's go. This looks so amazing. I've been craving Budae Jjigae and I've been thinking about this all morning. Okay, let's give it a taste. I have a sausage with some kimchi. Super hot. So good. It's the perfect amount of saltiness, savory, with a little bit of spice, and it's so, so, so good. I cannot get enough of this soup. Okay, let's try the noodles. Look at that. And it's got a little bit of cheese on it too. It's so creamy because of the cheese. Oh my gosh, this is so good. So this is our simple but delicious recipe for Budae Jjigae. Believe me, it's better than any Budae Jjigae you'll try at any restaurant. I hope you guys give it a try at home. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back next time with another fantastic Korean recipe. I'll see you guys soon. Bye!